All right, here we go. Everybody going live. Let's see. Are we live? I think we're live. Hey, if you're tuning in, say hi in the comments. With people tuning in from across different social media platforms, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I'm glad you're here. Everybody, I'm Peter Bowden, and in this live session, we're going to dive into a question that came in via my online question box, which is all about congregations and our relevance today in response to changing culture. So first, before we get into this, please tell me in a comment, where are you tuning in from? I'm in Cambridge, Mass. And I know that we have friends, I expect people joining us from across the globe, Canada, UK, Ireland, etc. So in the comments, where are you tuning from? All right. Oh, yes, Mike, Nancy, Michael. All right, great. West Coast, all over. Cork, Ireland. Yes. Wilmington, Delaware. Now, as we get into the question, let me read the question. So this came in via my online question box. Question is, Peter, changes in US society and culture seem to have made organized religion less relevant to our population. How can churches change how they do church to make them more relevant? We can do this. All right, absolutely no question that there's a trend for, this is going pre-pandemic, for interest in religious organizations declining. So what does this mean for us? Given that we have a number of different people joining us with different contexts, what I'd love for you to do is just drop in the chat what's the context or role that you have. So I know joining some people, clergy, other religious professionals, board members, staff, volunteers in congregations, but also some denominational leaders checking out this broadcast or the replay, and some of my friends leading seminary programs. So what's your context? Lay leader, board president, membership director. Great. Yeah, so all kinds of different roles. Now, if you have a question that you'd like to tackle in an upcoming session, on my website, peterbowden.live, at the top of the site, there's a question box link. Just submit your question, and I have an ongoing stream of questions from people in my community, larger training community, that I'm just considering for these sessions. So what I like to do in these sessions is address questions that can be of immediate support to you, help you think through strategies, some different considerations, just advance the work of your congregation, your ministry. All right, so in response to how do we shift our approach in response to changing culture, we need to first start with what's happening with our world. Now there's so much happening in response to the pandemic. For those of you who don't know me, I've been working with congregations my entire adult life, first doing traditional parish consulting, working with small group ministry, membership growth, outreach and hospitality, facilitating board retreats, etc. And then, after years of working with television, I really got into helping our congregations use the tools of our time, video, different forms of media, social media, to really expand our work in ministry, to integrate digital tools with what we're doing. And so as the pandemic has really challenged our congregations, it's not only made a lot of what we've done, have to change the models, but friends, the pandemic has really accelerated changes in culture and technology. That's the equivalent of moving us 10 years into the future. So you think congregations have always been slow to adapt in response to the world changing around them. All right, so we're focused on our community. We have ways we do things, and the world tends to change faster around congregations. So it's a real required discipline of our leadership, our congregation, volunteer leaders, staff, religious professionals, to make sure that we're staying on top of changing culture. Well, the pandemic has accelerated that to such an extent, a lot of our congregations are challenged. So in this session, we're going to cover 5 shifts, things that were changing before the pandemic, things I've been talking about for a number of years at my trainings, but that are really accelerated. So 5 different shifts that I believe are really making it such that in our congregations, numbers are starting to decline, feeling like there's less relevance. And before I get into them, well, I'll tell you what they're first. All right, shift number 1, where people are spending their time and focusing their attention. That's dramatically shifted in recent years. Number 2, how people learn, research, and make decisions. 3, and there are many more than 5, we're just covering 5 in the session. What online visitors need from congregations in terms of supporting their process if they're going to connect with us successfully. What people want from their leaders in this digital age. 5, how people want their communities to be led. All right. Now, if any of you, I want to pop over to comments. If there are any things related to this topic, changing culture, our relevance in the world, how we need to adapt, please, I'd love for you to comment, whether we bring it into this session or I can spark ideas for future conversations. I love your feedback. I'm bringing a lot of my experience to the table, but a very collaborative approach to this body of work, which is ours, just adapting to the world and bringing the best of what congregations have to the world. Now, let's get into number 1. First, where people spend their time and attention. Now, as you're looking at these different shifts, I want you to consider, for the average congregation that's been stable in terms of its size and membership, if all of a sudden you start getting a little bit more interest in the congregation, people are a little bit more engaged, there's a little bit more word of mouth, that little shift of attention on what you're doing can all of a sudden lead to significant membership growth. Like, it's really very small shifts in attention and interest in a congregation that can lead to growth or serious decline. And so these shifts, as we go through them, I want you to think about, like, if the world shifts in the way we're connecting with people online, engage with our communities, etc., if the way people are acting in the larger world starts shifting, if we're not shifting in response, then that's going to start impacting engagement with what we're doing, participation, and the future of your congregation. So what's happening in terms of where people are spending their time and their attention? Online. Of course, that was the case before the pandemic. People were spending so much time online for work, online entertainment, connecting with people they know across different social media platforms. Just so many people by default, when they have a little bit of time, turn to the internet. And I've had leaders, I've talked with leaders over many years about strategy, and something that keeps coming up with people who are raised more digital natives. I've had people say, Peter, it's like whenever I have a break in my life, a pause between work, something else I have to do, what do? I dive into social media. It's like the water that I exist in, right? That the internet and social media, for many people today, it's like the water they live in. And so we have to be mindful of that. Attention, our world and the internet there are amazing algorithms now that in just like moment by moment are calibrating what people see to capture their attention. So if I'm a little bored and I go online, I look at YouTube, or I watch something on Netflix, or I engage with some kind of platform that has media. And what happens? Instantly, the algorithms behind that platform recognize, oh, Peter likes this kind of thing, and starts adapting what I'm showing. They want people to stay online, consume their service, look at their ads. And so the internet is increasingly customized for the individual to maximize engagement. All right. Now, for us, this is challenging because what happens is if we aren't speaking to people in a way where we're showing up where they are online, we're not talking about in terms that they care about, if we're not interesting, if we're not exciting, if, God forbid, we're a little boring, within very little time, it could be a day, a week, platforms realize, you know what? Alex doesn't care what this congregation says. there's no comments, there's no likes, there's no engagement with what they're doing, we're going to stop showing that congregation's content to these people. In short, if we're not engaging, if we're not exciting, if we're not speaking to what people really care about, very quickly we become invisible to them. So that's really important, that if the way we're communicating is not designed to be in line with the way people are using the internet and what these platforms think people care about. Like if we're not speaking to like, hey, these are the things we're doing in the congregation. This is why this matters. You're concerned about climate change. We're working on climate. If you want to, if we're not doing that, not only do we get less attention, we're actually removed like from the playing field completely by these algorithms. All right. How people, and we'll get back, we can talk a little bit about like, how do we make the shift? I mean, what do we do in response? Number 2, how people learn, research, and make decisions. Now, friends, I've been working with congregations and helping to connect with people, share what we're, who we are, making it easier for people to really discern, is this congregation right for me? Now, what happens these days, when people are interested in something, say somebody mentions, hey, you know what? I think you'd love that congregation. Or someone, I was raised Unitarian Universalist. Someone says, hey, you know what? I think you're probably Unitarian Universalist. You just don't know it. That comes up a lot. What happens? Does the person say, oh, well, I'm going to go maybe walk around town, see if I can find a congregation of that flavor and kind of spend some time getting to know that congregation, meet the people, get to know their leaders, experience this thing, in this example, Unitarian Universalism, and see if it's really a match for me. No, they're like, maybe they've had finished coffee with that person, pull out their smartphone, it's like, all right, they said I might be a Unitarian Universalism or whatever your denomination is. What's a voice search? What's a Unitarian Universalist? And all of a sudden, there is some answers. And so what do? They dive in, they research right there. They're in this active research mode. They're like, gosh, hopefully they find some great, compelling content. Maybe one of my videos about Unitarian Universalism, maybe yours, someone else's, Wikipedia, and that's really interesting. Look for a congregation like that near me. Do a search, boom, your congregation pops up. These people, active research mode. All of their attention is focused right then and there on that question. See, this is part of our living in a world where people expect to have access to information instantly and can use that to make well-informed and very often important life decisions right then when they're concerned. So they tune in, and when they land on, say, your website, we have the opportunity, or social media too, but often like social media brings people to your website. We have the opportunity to support people in that research mode. And that gets to number 3, what people in that kind of research mode need from us. That has shifted. The way I talk about it in my trainings is what used to be part of our path to membership. So if you want to connect with our congregation, say you might come attend a service or something, because there's no other way, like on site, there's no other way to engage with us. You'd have to spend time amongst us. And then we had offerings like classes, sessions with ministers, etc., where you would go through all this newcomer and welcoming experiences and orientation content. And eventually you get to the point where like, this is for me. Wow. And then there's like new member classes and you actually get welcomed into membership. So all this stuff along that path, welcoming, orientation, and helping you discern, is this place right for me? We really have oriented that content to be things that we do face-to-face with people, whether it's off-site or now online, that you're engaged with us relationally. We're talking, we're having conversation, we're presenting, you're asking questions. All that intro content, your average person online, they want to be able to find that on demand in that moment when they're exploring, which means We have to take what was our previous welcoming, orientation, hospitality, that newcomer experience, and adapt it for an online, on demand culture. All right, which means we need to be making a lot more on demand content and setting up our way of engaging with newcomers such that we are supporting their online process. Because what happens is when people see that, I mean, it's laying on the website, they're like, all right, what's here, what's there? They're checking out your website. They're looking to answer questions they have. Who are these people? What do they believe? What are they about? Do we care about the same justice issues? Or if I'm raising my children amongst these people, what are they going to teach them? Like, what's this all about? If people can't find the answers to those questions, they kick out. They don't like make an appointment to attend a service. They don't make an appointment with the minister or someone else. What they do is they don't say, oh, email this person if you have any questions. They don't do that. They're just like, maybe I'll like the Facebook page or subscribe to that. And they kick back out of active research mode into passive. I'll see what it's about. These are generalizations. There's all different behavior, different experiences, but a lot of support for this process from people I've engaged with over the years and recently. And so as soon as people move out of the active research mode, it's very hard to get them back because they're not in a position to sign up for a newcomer event, to really fully participate. So we really have to focus our attention on when people are in that active research mode and they are fully attending to us. How do we support them? How do we give them the content they need to make decisions? Because the more information we give them, the more we answer their questions, the less anxiety they have. And my friends who've been with me online for a while know, I like to say, when there is uncertainty, when there is anxiety, that doesn't lead to a visit to your congregation. It leads where? To Netflix. All right. Anxious people are like, nah, forget it. I'm going to go do something else. So that's it. All right. So we have to shift how we support people online. Now, what about what people want from their leaders? This is a huge problem across denominations, congregations everywhere are struggling with this. I'm actively working to support clergy and other religious professionals and volunteers in adapting. What do people want from their leaders? If you're a part of a religious community, a congregation, doesn't matter the tradition. If you've been raised with the internet, if you are used to having, when things happen in the world, you go online to see what's happening. You're checking out news on Twitter. You're watching videos on demand about, say, what's happening in Ukraine or other issues and just whatever the challenge is. When we're hurting, when we're concerned, when we're hoping for a better world, we want someone, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm listening. You think I'm wrong? I think we want people, a leader who's going to pull out their phone, record a video, or go live and actually show up online and be like, right now, this is happening. Whether it's responding to the murder of George Floyd, or what's happening in Ukraine, or the rise of hate and fascism in our world, concerns over climate change, like what's happening in our polls right now is terrifying. To have a minister or other leader show up on video and be like, community, like this is happening, and then what's the message? Do you have something to offer? Can you speak to the hopes, wants, pains, concerns, like all these issues that people have, so that you're like, yes, my minister, my congregation, our leaders, this task force, this team, our environmental justice team, like we're working on this together. You're speaking to my concerns. I feel cared for and loved. And so what happens is when we're not doing that, when we don't have the capacity as a congregation to show up online in real time as life happens, especially given our stormy world right now, all the challenges we're facing, people tune into the influencers, the brands, the whomever, whatever organization is, who are, and increasingly their affiliation, their interest, their time, their membership goes in that direction. So it's critical that we start showing up online in new ways, which means learning new tools, online video, rocking social media in different ways, and of course, all the things we traditionally do as congregations. And last, how people want their communities to be led. Now, this is interesting. The internet has changed the way people in our world really expect to interact with each other. I mean, once upon a time, it used to be that there were just a handful of, oh, wait, here's let me do a question. All right, in the chat, how many TV channels did you have access to when you grew up, when you were a little kid? Like, say when you're 7, 8 years old, did you watch TV? Did you have a TV? What is it, black and white or color? How many channels did you have? For me, I remember being a little kid and was like, all right, we've got like ABC, NBC, and we're trying with our expanded bunny ears, trying to get some UHF channels. Now, all right, Michael says he has three. So today, the fact that first we've gone from only the small number of networks being able to broadcast to millions and millions of broadcasters. I'm a broadcaster. I'm broadcasting right now. Here we are live across the world. Like everybody has the power to communicate in some way with, we can't forget PBS. We all have the power, those with internet access, to communicate. And also not only to broadcast, but social media allows us to interact two-way. And so that's driven a change in culture to an expectation that we're not going to be focused as much on broadcast top-down communication, but peer-to-peer conversation, community, group process. And for congregations, I think we're really starting to come up against the wall of if we are really focusing a lot of our energy, time, and the way we talk about what we're doing on clergy as experts who are sharing knowledge with us versus facilitating a more collaborative process of spiritual exploration. Like, what is the work and ministry, the mission of the congregation? How are we together working on this? I mean, there's a range in how congregations speak about this, but in my work with congregations across the United States especially, there are a lot where what's being communicated, it's very much, I'm reading this, I've been reflecting on this. And this is one of the things I do with clergy that I'm coaching on communications, like looking at, as you're speaking, how much is it about I this, I that, and resources you're bringing from outside versus what are we doing? What's the work of our congregation? How are we bringing different voices from within the congregation to the table so that there's this overarching sense of like, this is what we are about. This is what we are working on. These are the insights that we're bringing from the different groups and classes, experience we're having, and there's a sense that we are really a collaborative learning community. And so that shift from like top-down rigid hierarchies to a growing expectation that we are all equal, we all need more of a voice at the table. Leadership should be, in conversations, decision-making should be more visible, transparent, collaborative. Even if there's someone who like using policy governance and so is functioning as your congregation's CEO, you might be the ultimate decision maker as an executive, but the process people want is much more collaborative. So just those kind of shifts there. If we, let me just move this one. All right. And that's just some of the shifts, but I think these are some of the ones that congregations are coming up against most right now. If we're not using the tools of our time to really show up and lead online, to engage people in conversation, and to really create through our use of media, social media, different digital tools, video, to really infuse our existing members and friends and the community around us with a sense of here's who we are, this is what we're working on, this is what we're about, this is, like, we're engaged in this conversation right now on this issue or this kind of exploration. Here's how you can join us, and really have people online feel like they know who you are, what you're working on, and have it be very relational, very engaging. 'Cause, like, people tune into other human beings. So if our congregations are communicating, like, more announcements, not having leaders show up online, everything starts tipping away from this engagement, awareness, and that speaks to real trouble for our congregations. So that is my 5 for just kind of responding to that question. How do we stay relevant? Like, part of it is taking all that we have and making it easy for people online to not only engage with those topics, but to engage with us as human beings, as leaders. For me, it's very much about relationship. So relationship. That's what I say. People are like, oh, how do we navigate the digital and convert? Well, we don't necessarily want to convert congregation life into like just digital life, but it's by showing up online, communicating effectively using the tools we have, and really prioritizing relationship and interaction, that we build the kind of trust that people need to be like, I want to continue the conversation with, say, you and your congregation. So do you have thoughts on that? Questions? I'd love your comments. I'm going to wrap up in just a moment. So this, again, is part of my Q&A series. If you go to peterbowden.live/question box, that's where you can submit questions. And again, my hope, in addition to the coaching and training I'm doing, I just want to show up online myself and continue to help us learn, figure out new ways to engage with people online, and really adapt congregational life to today's world. Just because I know what we have, all that your congregation has to offer, and I just know that people need connection, community, meaning, and the kind of support that I hope you can offer. So excited for all that we can do together. Please let me know if you have follow-up questions, and I will talk to you all soon. All right, I just want to say goodbye. Odile, it's great to see you. We have a lot of people like bunny ears. Yep, Angela had bunny ears. How many channels do we have now? I couldn't even count the number of channels that our cable has. I've worked with children's television for many years, so like it's been important for me to kind of like tune into like what's on cable TV and what's here and there, and like now it just is mind-boggling. Mike, all right, all right, here's a question from Mike O'Sullivan. How do you overcome the double-edged sword? Let me put this on screen here. How do you overcome the double-edged sword that broadcast services brings, that people don't feel the need to attend in person, but can just watch? Bio deal. So for me, I think it's important that as we're designing online worship services, that we think about it in terms of like how through our online worship experiences, not a broadcast, but experiences, do we bring in the relational components? And so I've recommended to some congregations that they take their live stream, and say you're streaming to like using Zoom. A lot of congregations are broadcasting to Facebook or YouTube, and I've said, take what you're doing with your live stream and start it in Zoom, so that you're bringing your content, your experience, what's happening in your sanctuary, if you're in your sanctuary, into Zoom, but have a Zoom meeting where, whether it's half hour or 20 minutes before the service starts, you have an opportunity for people to gather face-to-face on Zoom, where they can go into breakout groups for different conversations. You could have a little, I know some congregations are now using that space to have a welcome table kind of experience. So you come into that space, the Zoom space, Zoom meeting, and there's a host welcoming you and directing you. Oh, we have our welcome team is in this breakout group, and we have these different conversations, and you're creating face-to-face community around what's a larger broadcast. I think that's powerful. I've been experimenting with using platforms like Topia, which is spatial video, where you have a virtual environment that you can bring video broadcasts into, but have people move around and have video chat with each other. So there's some exciting potential there. And also, I just say, Mike, and others, the glue that keeps people coming to church is relationship. So I believe, and I've worked with congregations in small group ministry for years, really helping to pioneer some of those models used in my home denomination. If people don't have relationships, don't count on them coming to church. So if you, or your congregation, so if you want people to be engaged and engage in worship, you have to back them and say, like, how are they involved in the congregation relationally? Are they part of a small, ongoing, spiritual oriented small group? Are they part of a parenting group? Are they part of this? And like, if you look at all the people in your congregation, where do they fit in terms of the relational structure of your congregation? And now with the pandemic and online life, we really have to be very intentional about figuring out who's our community. Are they engaged with people, like in terms of conversation, connection, community? And anyone who's just participating as an individual, or like shows up to a broadcast, is tuning in, you should assume that if you can't get them into some kind of group experience and help them secure friendships in your congregation, that they're not going to stick around. But if you can, and I increasingly think we need to be using facilitated online events, like quarterly connecting events, where we're using the amazing powers of Zoom to bring people into breakout groups, to facilitate connection, short conversations, come back, do crowdsourcing of things and fun activities. And we need to use activities like, events like that to rapidly take newcomers and make them feel like, oh, I know this person and that person. I've become friends with Odile and Mike, and like, this is my community. So I think it's challenging to get people to show up to a broadcast if it's just a broadcast. But if it's tied into congregational life and that's their community, that's a different story. All right, let me just see other. I hope that helps, Mike. Other question. All right, does what you're saying mean churches do not need physical locations? I am a fan and champion of having, and thanks for the question, Karen, of having local congregations with buildings, because I think communities, I think we can come together and really serve as engines for transformation in our communities, and the world needs that. And as we're able to gather safely, that, it's better if we can have people that we know and interact with face-to-face, physically, on site. So I think that's important. There are many things we could do without buildings. I think we're going to see there are all sorts of online communities and alternatives to congregational life proliferating, exploding online. There's so many different online communities. It's amazing. And many of them are outperforming congregations because they're just communicating with people in the way that's native for them. But if you look at your local congregation, I think it's helpful to think of whatever congregation you have, you're going to need to have, you'll have so many people worshiping on site. We need to have probably even more people engaged and participating in online worship and online small groups, so that we have like this larger community that's a local congregation with people online as well. Many people who might want to, for a number of years now, I think we're going to have people who would like to participate in congregational life, but are not able to because of just ongoing pandemic issues. And all the people we've learned that we can reach and connect with, people who are not able to travel, not able to get to a physical location, that we're able to support them through our ministry. So we have the local congregation, people participating on site, another whole circle of people who are full members and friends participating online, because we need to do that, absolutely. And then you need to have a larger audience of people online who are tuned into and connected to your social media, getting to know you and your leaders, because it's through those online connections that people are going to move from being online, not knowing about your congregation, come to learn about you, and then connect online, engage that way as members and friends, and then a certain number are going to participate on site. And so I do think there's value and a need for physical local congregations, buildings, etc. But we also have to be mindful of like, how do we interact with the world and what's our mission? Like, what are we called to do? I hope that helps, Karen. The any last question before we wrap up? I think it's important to recognize that so much of my work has been about relationship, connection, community, and fostering community relationships and experiences in congregations, which historically have been fantastic at what you might call relational growth strategies. We're using groups and other things to extend relationships, bring people into relationship with the congregation, and grow through a relationship. And so I just want you to know that is always going to be important in a powerful way to really have people connect with your congregation. But at least where I'm in the United States, the average person statistically has less than one friend. Many have zero. So we can't count on that kind of approach to connect with people who are disconnected and who are only online. So there's much for us to do, big mission, big challenge, but I think we have huge potential. So I just want to thank you for your leadership, for tuning in this long. Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you have follow-up questions. And I'm going to be scheduling next week's live session shortly. Still deciding on, I have a handful of questions in the question box, but if you have follow-up questions, feel free to comment here, including after the live session's over, and I'll look at all those and then set next week's session. All right, I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day. And it's exciting to have some old friends in the space. All right, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, thank you for all you do. I always like to say thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate you. And just, we're in it together. Go team.